Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Brandon, and welcome back to another episode of Murata Media. In today's review, we'll be discussing one of the most critically acclaimed movies of 2019, Bong Joon-ho's Parasite. Parasite first premiered at the Cannes Film Festival earlier this year, where it won the top prize, the Palme d'Or, and both critics and audiences have been loving it. And I will be honest, I'm usually not into foreign language films because reading subtitles kind of takes me out of the experience of the movie. But I did hear what people were saying about Parasite, and I was like, oh hell, I'll check it out. Maybe it's as good as people say. And not only was Parasite one of the best movies of 2019, this honestly might be one of the best films that I've ever seen. Parasite is a movie that I feel is best experienced when you go into it knowing as little as possible. So the story is basically about these two families, the Kims and the Parks. The Kims are a very poor family that live in this basement apartment in the slums of Korea, and the Parks are this very rich family who live in this gorgeous home up on a hill. And the Kims start to take a peculiar interest in the Parks' life when their son gets a job tutoring the Park's daughter. So what is it about Parasite that is so good? Well, let's start with the cinematography. Yet another movie that has splendid cinematography. There are several shots that are so clever because the streets of Korea are much different than those here in America, and it was very interesting to see just how clever they got with the shot composition here. Surprisingly, Parasite was also very funny. It's certainly not a comedy in its own right, but the comedy is so well written that it could be one. And I love Parasite's commentary on the rich and the poor, because the wealthy Park family lives at the top of this hill in this beautiful house, while the Kims live in this basement. One is at the top, one is at the bottom. Which is such a simple metaphor, but I loved Parasite's portrayal of it, and how these two families only interact with one another in a strictly professional manner. Like, you would never see them out together interacting just as friends. Like, even the patriarch of the Park family even mentions at one point that poor people have a certain smell to them. But that being said, the Park family is not really portrayed in a villainous way, because typically movies portray rich people as these awful human beings who care only about themselves, but the Parks aren't written that way, they're only seen that way. And it was also interesting to see the difference and the slight similarities in cultures, namely between Korea and America. Because right at the beginning of the movie, both of the Kim's children are just wandering around their apartment searching for Wi-Fi. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen people scouring areas to find Wi-Fi. But in terms of pacing, Parasite is spot on. It slowly starts to set up the main conflicts, but then the second act, it almost becomes a thriller. I also cannot express how perfect I thought this movie's ending was. The ending starts to go one way, and I remember saying to myself, I'm like, no, it can't end that way. That isn't right. That isn't how this movie should end. But then it does a complete 180 and pulls the wool from over your eyes, and it ends in a completely different manner. And I thought the way that it did end was the right choice. This movie also makes you wonder about its title, Parasite. I mean, who is the parasite here? Is it the rich who constantly suck resources away from the poor? Or is it the poor who invade the rich's lives in order to live a much more lavish lifestyle? And the only complaint that I really have about this movie is kind of spoilery, so I'm gonna mention it really quick. And if you don't want anything spoiled, then I really highly recommend that you don't watch this section, so skip to this timestamp. When all of the Kims get a job in the Park household, I thought it was kind of strange that the Parks weren't able to tell that they were all related. Like, there was no point where the Parks said to themselves, like, have you ever noticed that they all interact in a certain way and they all kind of look the same? But it's moments like that where you kind of just need to turn your brain off because the movie needs to keep going somehow. But in the end, guys, Parasite is a tremendous film. It's so well acted, it has beautiful cinematography, and I really can't say enough about Bong Joon-ho's direction. But if you have not seen this movie yet, then I really highly recommend it, because I do not think that you will regret it. But I'm just letting you know, go into this movie knowing nothing about it. Believe me, it is best to go in with as little information as possible. And overall, I'd give Parasite a 10 out of 10. I rarely ever give 10s to movies, but the last 2 reviews I've done have been 10s. 2019 has been such a tremendous year for movies. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching my review of Parasite. Tell me what you guys thought about it. Did you love it just as much as I did? Do you think that all the hype was worth it? If you like this review, be sure to hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. If you guys want to check out my past reviews, those will be linked right over here. And other than that, I hope you all have a tremendous rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.